Good morning and welcome to day 12 of the Studio 5 Going Live online summer exhibition. Do apologise about this slight technical hitch. I had filmed all this before. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to share for some unknown reason. Anyway, a second time through for me, first for you probably. Today we're going to be looking at the one of my favourite artists' books. It's a book about an artist, not an artist book. Let me get that right. The title of this particular book is Joseph Cornell, Shadowplay and Eterniday. Published by Thames and Hudson, originally in 2003. This is a fourth printing from 2006. It is basically the collected works of Joseph Cornell, who for me was probably one of the most wonderful, iconic and superb artists of the 20th century. Born in 1903, I believe, and died in 1972. Cornell, an American artist, he was by and large self-taught, and he never really travelled from his home. He is widely considered by many to be one of the finest exponents, indeed, a person who's created, if you like, contemporary assemblage work. He basically looked after his mother and his younger brother, and his brother was disabled, and it was while he was trying to entertain his brother that he started creating assemblage works to entertain his brother, basically. Though Cornell was associated early in his sort of working career with surrealists, he sort of moved away from them. He referred to them as, workers of black magic, and he predominantly used white in his work, though not always, of course. He also did quite a lot of experimental filmmaking. For me, he always lights my candle, and ever since art college, when I was first introduced to the work of Cornell, I haven't really looked back. His work is very, very collected in major collections around the world, and what I've tried to do with this particular book is encapsulate the feeling of his work. The binding itself measures 28.5 by 24.2 by 5.8 centimetres. And again, if you're interested in any of the work or require any more information, please don't hesitate to contact me. The materials used in this are as diverse from glass, sand, leather, papers, handprints, all sorts of things in it. And we've just had a look at the front board where we do actually have sand moving in one of the assemblage in the front board. But for a second, we're just going to look at the back board now. And we can see that it's a framework. And again, if we do look at the work on the frame, you'll be able to see that the corners do not match. And this is quite on purpose, because what I wanted to do was sort of echo and emulate his work. So if we look into the corner there, you can see that the frame doesn't match. That is on purpose. It's not because I can't do it. I used to work for a picture framer, so I can. But the nice thing about this particular backboard is that for me, every time I look at his work and I play with this particular book, this changes the binding completely. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the book up and have a little bit of a play and hopefully be able to understand what I mean. Bear with me 1 second. So basically, every time I pick it up, the sand moves. And one of my favourite things of all time is I'm just going to tip the glass this way, is to have a little bit of fun, because this is one of my more favourite sort of aspects of this particular binding, is when I pick this up, the sand cascades down, and it really does. I'm like a kid with a toy. It keeps me occupied for ages and ages and ages. So let's have a little bit more in-depth look at the book itself. Full leather binding, full linen board attachment, secondary sewn, 3/4 hollow, leather skirting. What else can we say about it? Leather jointed end papers, hand printing, collage work, assemblage work, and I suppose if we go into the backboard, we can see what I mean by this. Now, people have asked me what is an edge-to-edge doublure, but before we move on to the doublure, what I'd like to do is, if at all possible, is just pan in there and we can just see the profile of Cornell peeking out from the shadows just there. So yeah, I do try to get as much in of this as possible. He had a sort of a love affair with Paris, and he sort of had a love affair with the ballet. He never travelled, though. He was very much a very insular, almost isolated person. And his work is fascinating, and I strongly advise people to look him up, get to know his work. It really is something else, and it may change your perceptions. It changed my perception of what art can be, should be, perhaps. On the front, doubleur. Now, this is a doubleur here. Now, doubleur is basically French, and it means double. And traditionally, with a full leather binding, perhaps, if you had enough money, you would have leather on the outside of the book, but also you would have leather in this area here. So you would have double the leather, doubleur. These end papers are leather jointed, so there is a strip of leather here which joins the end paper to the doubleur. And an edge-to-edge doubleur simply means that the doubleur goes from edge to edge to edge to edge. We can see in the front doubleur here that we've got antique images of solar eclipse, three ladies going off into eternity, reversed, perhaps looking into eternity. We've got star charts, we've got all sorts of things happening in here, which again refer very much to his working way. His work is extraordinarily collectible if you can afford it. It's in major collections around the world. And though this is basically it's a Thames and Hudson book about an artist, you know, I can't afford to buy the work of Joseph Cornell, but I can afford to buy a contemporary book about Joseph Cornell. And in a way, through that, I'm sort of owning his work. It's like it's like many things. I would love to be able to have Cornell's work, but there's no way I can do it. And I know there's an awful lot of book snobbishness around, saying, oh, it's not a private press book. Well, no, it isn't a private press book, because nothing in the private press has been printed about Joseph Cornell. Though Cornell himself did produce books, book arts, if you like, and they are sublime. They really are. Anyway, that's Joseph Cornell, Shadowplay and Eterniday. Thank you all very, very much indeed for being patient. I'm sorry about the technical hitch earlier on. I do hope you've enjoyed looking at this book as much as I've loved showing you. Please be safe, please use protection, and I'll see you tomorrow at the usual time. That's 11 o'clock British Standard Time, British Summer Time, I should say. And yeah, be safe, wear protection, follow good advice. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Have a lovely, lovely day.